There comes a moment in every life when the noise of the world grows louder than the whisper of the soul. A moment when every direction feels crowded by opinions that are not yours, judgments that do not belong to you, and expectations that were never crafted for your spirit. And yet in that same moment there exists a quiet strength waiting to rise, an untamed, unmoved, unshaken power that sleeps inside every human heart. It is the power of ignoring what people say. And when you learn to embrace it, when you learn to stand firm inside your own truth, when you decide to no longer bend your backbone to the weight of someone else's voice, your life changes in ways you never imagined. You see, people will talk. They always have, and they always will. They will talk because talking is easy. Talking requires no sacrifice, no courage, no responsibility. Talking does not demand them to build anything, only to comment on what someone else is building. They will talk because they see you walking a path they have never dared to touch. They will talk because your confidence unsettles their insecurity, because your dreams remind them of the ones they abandoned, because your resilience exposes the softness of their excuses. And so they wrap their discomfort in words, and they try to place those words on your shoulders as if they belong to you. But they do not. They never have. And they never will. The problem is not that people speak. The problem is when you begin to believe that the echo of their voice carries more power than the sound of your own, when you begin to swallow their doubts as if they are truth, when you begin to shrink so they can feel tall, bend so they can feel straight, quiet your voice so theirs can sound wise. The world will always offer you an audience of critics, but you must learn, deep in your bones, to choose whose voice you allow at your table. There is an ancient wisdom carved into the heart of humanity, a wisdom that whispers not every voice deserves your attention. Some voices want to guide you. Others want to limit you. Some speak from love. Others speak from fear. Some speak because they see your potential. Others speak because they fear your power. And if you listen carefully, not just with your ears but with your spirit, you will feel the difference. When you decide to ignore what people say, you are not choosing arrogance. You are choosing alignment. You are choosing to sit beside your own truth without apology. You are choosing to honor your own direction more than someone else's distraction. You are choosing the path that your feet were designed to walk, not the path someone else is afraid to travel. And let me tell you, there is a sacred kind of liberation in that choice. When you rise above the commentary of others, you discover the sweet taste of personal freedom. You begin to breathe differently. You begin to walk with a rhythm that only belongs to you. You begin to understand that you are not here to perform for the world. You are here to live, to expand, to experience, to grow in ways that satisfy your soul. You are here to pour meaning into your days, not to pour your energy into proving yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. Ignore the voices that tell you that you are too much or too little, too bold or too quiet, too ambitious or too naive, too spiritual or too worldly. There is no human being on this earth who can define you better than the one who created you, and the self who wakes up in your own skin every morning. When people cannot comprehend the shape of your destiny, they will try to resize you. They will try to mold you into something smaller, something familiar, something that fits within the boundaries of their understanding. But you were not born to fit inside the comfort zone of someone else's fears. You were born to stretch, to reach, to unfold, to rise. The power of ignoring what people say is not a single act. It is a practice, a discipline, a daily courage. Each morning you must choose who gets access to your mental space. You must choose which opinions you welcome and which you let pass like wind. You must choose to become the guardian of your own peace. There will be days when ignoring others feels easy. Days when your spirit stands tall. Days when your vision is so clear that no voice can shake it. But there will also be days when the opinions sting a little deeper than usual. Days when the world feels heavy. Days when you feel misunderstood, unseen, or doubted by the very people you wished would support you. On those days, you must remember that the world cannot always see what you carry inside. They cannot see the battles you've fought, the mountains you've climbed, the nights you prayed for strength that no one else knew you needed. They cannot see the quiet resilience planted in your soul by every hardship you survived. And because they cannot see it, they cannot define it. Ignore them. Your life is too precious to be governed by small voices. Your journey is too divine to be shaped by unkind opinions. Your future is too vast to be limited by the fears of others. There is a moment in every strong person's life when they decide to stop running after approval. They decide to stop asking for permission to become themselves. They decide to stop dimming their own brilliance just to keep someone else comfortable. And when that moment comes, when they finally stand firm inside their truth, the entire universe shifts, the path widens. The air clears, the noise fades, and the spirit expands. Ignoring what people say does not make you cold. It makes you clear. It makes you focused. It makes you dedicated to the call that was placed within you long before anyone else formed an opinion about it. It allows you to operate from intention rather than reaction. It allows you to build instead of defend. It allows you to live instead of shrink. You must understand that not every critic sees your destination. Some people judge your journey without knowing your map. They see the step you are on, not the mountain you are climbing. They see your mistakes, but not your lessons. They see your beginnings, but not your becoming. They see your wounds, but not your healing. So how could their words ever define your worth? Ignore them. And when you ignore them, something miraculous begins to happen. The energy you once wasted on their opinions becomes fuel for your purpose. The time you once spent questioning yourself becomes time spent growing yourself. The weight you once carried in your spirit disappears like smoke. Suddenly, you have space to dream, space to breathe, space to rise. There is a power in silence, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of confidence. The silence that says, I don't need to explain myself to understand myself. The silence that says, my life will be my answer. The silence that says, your doubt cannot rewrite my destiny. When you no longer respond to negativity, negativity loses its grip on you. When you no longer chase validation, validation finds no doorway into your peace. When you no longer bend under pressure, the pressure reveals your strength instead of your fragility. Ignoring what people say is not about dismissing wisdom. There will be voices that carry truth, guidance, and love. Listen to those. Cherish those. But learn to distinguish between voices that want to see you grow and voices that want to keep you small. Some people will speak into your life like sunlight, helping you grow and bloom. Others will speak like frost, hoping to wither your spirit. Know the difference and choose accordingly. Your life is yours. Your calling is yours. Your path is yours. You are not required to explain yourself to those who refuse to understand you. You are not required to shrink so others can stretch. You are not required to abandon your dream just because someone else cannot see it. Stand tall in your truth. Stand tall in your purpose. Stand tall in your spirit. The world may speak, but you do not have to listen. You have the right to protect your peace. You have the right to nurture your own voice. You have the right to walk boldly in the direction of your destiny. And when you do, when you finally embrace the sacred power of ignoring what people say, you will feel something shift inside you. You will feel something open, something expand, something awaken. You will feel the weight fall away. You will feel the freedom of belonging wholly and completely to yourself. Because the truth is this: your life changes the moment you decide that someone else's voice will no longer be louder than your own. And once you taste that freedom, even for a moment, you will never again surrender your peace to the noise of the world. Ignore them. Rise anyway. Grow anyway. Build anyway. Dream anyway. Become anyway. The power is yours. The life is yours. And the world will adjust. The moment you stop seeking approval, your true identity begins to rise. Because so much of who you think you are is shaped by the mirror of other people's expectations. From childhood you are taught to look outward for validation, to listen for applause before believing in your own worth, to wait for permission before moving toward the life that quietly calls you. You grow up learning to measure yourself by someone else's ruler, judging your value by the nods of people who may not even understand your journey. And little by little, without noticing, you begin to abandon pieces of yourself just to fit into the narrow spaces others create for you. You dim your brilliance because someone says you shine too bright. You soften your voice because someone says it carries too much power. You shrink your dreams because someone says they are too heavy with ambition. And all the while, the person you were meant to become sits patiently in the background, waiting for the day you decide to stop living in the shadow of opinions that do not belong to your soul. When you finally stop seeking approval, something shifts in the deepest part of you. A quiet awakening begins, one that is not dramatic or loud, but steady like the rising sun. You begin to see that the world's judgment is too fragile a foundation to hold the weight of your identity. You realize that approval is a moving target, changing with trends, emotions, insecurities, and misunderstandings. You begin to understand that people will praise you today and question you tomorrow, celebrate you in one season and criticize you in the next. And if you attach your worth to their changing winds, you will spend your life being blown off course, never knowing the strength of your own ground. But when you turn inward, when you begin to listen to your own voice more than the voices around you, you step into a truth that cannot be taken away. Your identity starts to rise from a place that is not shaped by fear, pressure, or desire to please. It rises from your history, your scars, your victories, your failures, your faith, your resilience, and the quiet wisdom you gathered when no one was watching. You begin to remember the parts of you that were buried under years of trying to be acceptable. You begin to reclaim the edges of your personality that you smoothed out just to avoid criticism. You begin to embrace the intensity, the softness, the uniqueness, the audacity, the depth that once made someone uncomfortable but was always the most authentic expression of your spirit. The moment you stop seeking approval, your courage expands. You start taking steps you once feared. You stop hesitating at the doorway of opportunity because you are no longer calculating who will approve and who will disapprove. You start choosing what is right for your growth rather than what is convenient for your image. You start speaking truths that once trembled behind your tongue. You start walking into rooms with a posture that says you belong not because the world invited you, but because your purpose did. Your decisions become clearer because they are no longer filtered through the lens of someone else's comfort. You also begin to see people differently. You see that some admired you not for your authenticity, but for your compliance. You recognize that some supported you only when you stayed within the lines they drew for you. And you realize that the people who genuinely care for your growth have never required you to earn their approval in the first place. They wanted you to rise on your own terms, even if it made them step back and adjust to your new strength. When you stop chasing validation, you start attracting alignment. You start calling in the kind of relationships that respect your truth rather than reshape it. The moment you stop seeking approval, life becomes simpler, not because the world changes, but because your relationship with it does. You no longer feel compelled to explain your every move. You no longer feel the urge to justify your dreams or defend your choices. You begin to trust that the path unfolding in front of you is meant for your feet alone, and no one else gets to define how you walk it. You start to breathe deeper, love truer, think clearer, and move freer. Your energy stops leaking into places where it was never valued. Your spirit stops bending in directions that exhaust your soul. And with every step you take in the direction of your own truth, your identity rises a little higher, a little stronger, a little clearer, revealing the person you were always meant to be, the one who was waiting behind the curtain of approval you finally chose to let fall. Ignoring empty opinions creates space for your purpose to breathe, because every soul carries a calling that needs room to stretch, wander, and unfold without being suffocated by voices that add nothing to its growth. Empty opinions come wrapped in noise but carry no nourishment. They arrive loud yet hollow, spoken not from wisdom but from habit, insecurity, or the simple desire to fill silence with judgment. When you allow these opinions to enter your mind, they clutter the very space your dreams need to live. They settle in your thoughts like dust, clouding vision, slowing progress, and making you question paths that were once clear. They shrink your imagination, distract your focus, and drain the energy that was meant for building, creating, healing, and becoming. But when you learn to step back from them, to recognize their emptiness and refuse to carry their weight, you give your purpose the oxygen it has always been waiting for. Every person is born with an inner compass, a quiet pull toward something meaningful, something fulfilling, something aligned with the truth of who they are. But that compass is delicate. It does not shout, it whispers. And if the room of your mind is filled with the chatter of people who do not understand your journey, the whisper of your calling becomes hard to hear. The world is full of those who speak without listening, who judge without understanding, who criticize without building anything themselves. Their words are easy to produce because they cost them nothing. It takes no courage to point at someone else's path. It takes no strength to offer opinions with no depth. And if you let these voices into your heart, they begin to crowd out the internal guidance that was meant to lead you forward. But when you start filtering what you allow into your spirit, you experience a shift, a quiet liberation. You begin to feel the difference between a voice that wants to help you rise and a voice that simply wants to be heard. You begin to notice how much lighter your mind feels when you stop absorbing every comment, every suggestion, every criticism aimed at you. You recognize that not every remark deserves your attention. Not every opinion carries truth, and not every person has earned the right to influence your direction. As you release the grip of these voices, you clear mental and emotional space that was once crowded by meaningless noise. And in that space, your purpose begins to breathe. It stretches itself like a sunrise across the horizon of your mind. It becomes clearer. It becomes louder. It starts reminding you of the dreams you once held with both hands, but gradually loosened, because someone said they were unrealistic. It starts pulling you back to the goals you set aside, because someone made you question your ability. It resurrects the visions that once made your heart race but were buried beneath the opinions of those who never walked a mile in your shoes. Purpose does not die easily. It waits. And the moment you stop feeding yourself empty voices, purpose rushes into the silence create, eager to grow again. Ignoring empty opinions is not the same as rejecting guidance. Some people speak truth, offer wisdom, and carry insight that can elevate your life. But the voices that come without foundation, the ones that offer criticism without compassion, advice without understanding, or judgment without context, those voices do nothing but pull you away from the path you were born to walk. When you filter them out, you reclaim authority over your own narrative. You begin to make decisions based on who you are and what you are called to do, not based on who someone else thinks you should be. As the unnecessary noise fades, focus returns. Your mind becomes sharper. Your energy becomes more intentional. Your time becomes more sacred. You start pouring effort into things that matter, not into defending yourself against meaningless comments. You begin to recognize that your purpose was never meant to compete with empty noise. It simply needed room. And with each layer of clutter you remove, your inner vision widens. Your steps become more aligned. Your actions become more rooted. You begin moving with clarity, confidence, and conviction that cannot be shaken by shallow words. When the opinions that once distracted you lose their power, you also begin to understand yourself differently. You realize that your value was never tied to approval. Your direction was never supposed to be determined by the loudest voice. Your worth was never meant to shrink under someone else's limited viewpoint. And the more you ignore the things that do not feed your growth, the more your spirit expands into the fullness of who you are meant to be. Purpose is like a flame. It burns brighter when the winds of unnecessary noise are blocked. It becomes steady. It becomes powerful. It becomes unstoppable. And as it breathes freely in the space you create, it lights a path that only you can walk, guiding you with a clarity that no empty opinion could ever match. Not every voice deserves access to your peace or direction, because peace is one of the most sacred resources you own, and direction is one of the most personal parts of your journey. Too often, people hand these treasures to anyone who speaks loudly enough, anyone who carries an opinion, anyone who feels entitled to comment on a life they are not responsible for. Yet peace is not something to be given away freely, and direction is not something to be shaped by those who have never taken the time to understand your heart. When you allow every voice to influence you, you scatter your energy toward people who have not earned the privilege of guiding your steps. Some voices come dressed in concern but carry judgment. Some come dressed in familiarity but carry limitation. Some come dressed in confidence but carry nothing of wisdom. And if you open the doors of your spirit to all of them, you will soon find yourself walking paths that do not belong to you. Your peace is the foundation upon which your clarity rests. When it is disturbed, everything becomes blurred. You start doubting decisions you once felt sure about, questioning strengths you once trusted, and fearing outcomes you once believed were possible. And many times, this confusion comes not from your own thoughts, but from the voices you allowed too close. People who speak from their own fears project those fears onto you. People who speak from bitterness spread their bitterness into your vision. People who speak from insecurity try to pull you down to make their own comfort feel justified. They do not do it because they understand you, but because they cannot see beyond themselves. When you recognize this, you begin to understand why not every voice deserves access to something as precious as your inner calm. Direction is just as sacred. Your path is shaped by the lessons you've learned, the hopes you carry, the dreams you nurture quietly, and the faith that keeps you moving forward. No one else walks with the same scars or the same strengths. No one else wakes up with your fire or sleeps with your burdens. And because they do not share your journey, they cannot be trusted to shape it. Some will try to steer you to keep you small. Some will try to redirect you because your courage magnifies their hesitation. Some will try to control your path because they fear losing their influence once you rise. But your direction belongs to you, and letting the wrong voices guide it will always pull you away from the places you are meant to reach. Once you begin guarding your peace and filtering the voices you allow into your inner world, everything shifts. Clarity returns. Confidence strengthens. Decisions become cleaner because they are no longer drenched in the noise of outsiders. You walk with a steadiness that others may not understand, because they no longer have access to the core of your spirit. You begin to trust yourself more deeply, because your choices are shaped by your values instead of their opinions. And in that quiet space, free from unnecessary influence, your true direction emerges, leading you exactly where you were always meant to go. Your destiny becomes clearer when you silence the noise around you, because every person carries within them a calling, a path, and a purpose that cannot be fully seen when the mind is cluttered with the endless chatter of the world. The voices of others, some well-meaning, some critical, some indifferent, often compete for attention in ways that distract from the subtle pull of your own intuition. They speak of limitations, fears, comparisons, and what should be, all while your heart quietly whispers what could be. When you listen to everything, the important signal gets lost in the static. But when you choose to silence the noise, to step back from the opinions, the criticisms, and the judgments, you create space for clarity to enter. You begin to hear your own voice again, the one that carries wisdom rooted in experience, in dreams, in truth. That is the voice that can lead you to your destiny. The world is full of distractions that try to pull you off course. Some are subtle, appearing as advice from those who believe they know better. Some are loud, shouting demands, expectations, and comparisons that make you question your own path. Some are silent, the kind that sneak into your mind through doubts, worries, and fears planted by others over time. And if you allow all of these distractions to dictate your focus, your sense of direction becomes clouded. You begin to second-guess choices that your soul once knew were right. You start measuring your progress against the lives of people whose journey is not yours. You feel the pull of anxiety, pressure, and uncertainty, because your attention is split between your path and the endless commentaries surrounding it. But the moment you consciously silence the noise, you reclaim your ability to discern the path meant for you from the paths that are meant for others. Silencing the noise is not about ignoring wisdom or guidance. It is about protecting your focus and listening to what is essential. It is about creating boundaries between what matters and what does not, between voices that uplift and voices that distract, between energy that empowers and energy that drains. When you do this, your decisions become sharper. Your steps become surer. The direction that once felt uncertain now has shape and momentum. You no longer bend under the weight of expectations that are not yours, and you no longer dilute your vision to fit the understanding of others. Instead, your mind and spirit become aligned, and your actions flow naturally toward the destiny that was always waiting for you. As the noise fades, clarity grows. You begin to notice patterns in your life that were invisible before. You recognize opportunities you had overlooked, connections that matter, and paths that lead you closer to fulfillment. Your intuition strengthens because it is no longer competing with so many other voices. Your heart feels lighter because you are no longer carrying the weight of approval or judgment. And with each step guided by this clarity, your sense of purpose deepens, your confidence solidifies, and your vision of your future becomes unmistakable. You realize that destiny was never lost. It was simply waiting for your attention, waiting for you to create the quiet that allows it to speak. Confidence grows when you trust your inner voice more than public judgment, because every step you take towards self-belief strengthens the foundation upon which your life is built. Too often people look outward for validation, measuring their worth by the applause, approval, or criticism of others. But confidence that depends on external validation is fragile. It sways with every opinion, every glance, every comment. True confidence, the kind that endures storms and withstands doubt, comes from listening to your own guidance, honoring your own experiences, and making decisions rooted in the truth of who you are. When you prioritize your inner voice over the judgments of the crowd, you cultivate a strength that cannot be shaken by fleeting opinions or passing trends. You learn to trust yourself in ways that no one else can teach you, because your inner voice knows the terrain of your soul, your values, and your unique path in life. Public judgment is often loud and persuasive, but it is rarely complete. People see fragments of your story and form conclusions based on what they understand, which is often little more than perception. They comment from fear, envy, misunderstanding, or habit, offering opinions that are shaped by their own limitations. When you allow these voices to dictate your choices, your confidence becomes conditional. It depends on factors outside your control, factors that shift and change like the wind. But when you begin to trust your inner voice, you reclaim authority over your own life. You recognize that you are the only one who fully inhabits your experiences, faces your challenges, and knows your intentions. This trust transforms hesitation into decisiveness, self-doubt into courage, and uncertainty into clarity. Listening to your inner voice strengthens confidence, because it connects you to your values and your purpose. It teaches you to recognize what matters and what does not, what aligns with your growth and what distracts you from it. The inner voice speaks in quiet truths, the instincts that urge you to take the next step, the feelings that warn you against compromise, the insights that remind you of your capabilities. When you honor this voice, you act with integrity, making choices that reflect who you truly are rather than who others want you to be. This alignment between thought, action, and identity fosters an unwavering self-assurance, a confidence that radiates without arrogance and stands firm without defensiveness. Confidence rooted in your inner voice also allows you to navigate criticism and opposition with grace. When you are anchored in your own understanding, the judgments of others lose their power to destabilize you. You no longer bend to the weight of misunderstanding or shrink in response to disapproval. Instead, you observe, discern, and continue walking with poise, knowing that your worth and direction are determined by your own insight, not by external approval. This resilience builds momentum, encouraging you to take on challenges, pursue your goals, and step into opportunities that others might have deemed too risky or unattainable. As you trust your inner voice more, your confidence grows exponentially, creating a life shaped not by fear of judgment but by clarity of purpose, courage, and self-belief. Some people talk to limit you. Your power is choosing not to listen, because the world is full of voices that speak from fear, insecurity, or jealousy, and not every word deserves to shape your life. People often project their limitations onto others, hoping that by keeping someone small, they can feel safe in their own inadequacy. Some will whisper doubts disguised as advice, Some will shout criticism meant to intimidate, and some will quietly undermine your confidence without ever revealing themselves. These voices are not neutral. They are loaded with intention, whether conscious or not. And if you allow them to penetrate your mind and heart, they can create barriers that were never meant to exist. Your spirit was never designed to shrink to accommodate the fear of others. Your goals were never meant to be diluted to soothe the insecurity of someone else. Recognizing this truth is the first step toward reclaiming your power. When you choose not to listen to those who speak to limit you, you are doing more than just ignoring words. You are protecting your energy, your vision, and your potential. Every human life has a finite amount of attention, focus, and emotional bandwidth. When you invest that energy in the opinions of people who seek to diminish you, you are effectively giving away pieces of yourself. You are allowing their fears to dictate your decisions, their doubts to cloud your judgment, and their limitations to restrict the expansion of your own spirit. But when you consciously decide to filter their voices, to refuse to internalize their negativity, you begin to reclaim the freedom that was always yours. You create a space where your dreams can breathe, your confidence can flourish, and your life can unfold according to your own design. Choosing not to listen requires courage, because these limiting voices often come from people we care about, people whose approval we have sought for years, or people whose influence has been significant in our lives. Letting go of their control does not mean you abandon respect or empathy, but it does mean you prioritize your own growth over someone else's comfort with your ambition. It means understanding that their perspective is filtered through their own experiences and biases, not through the lens of your potential. When you internalize this awareness, you no longer need external permission to pursue your calling. You no longer need validation from people whose visions are smaller than your own. You begin to recognize that your power exists independently of their opinions, and that power is activated the moment you decide not to let their words define your reality. The act of ignoring limiting voices also allows you to align more closely with the truth of who you are. These voices often attempt to distract you from your gifts, discourage you from pursuing your passions, or make you question your worth. When you reject their influence, you are saying yes to your authenticity and no to external control. You are acknowledging that your life is a canvas for your expression, not a stage for the insecurities of others. This clarity transforms your mindset, because instead of being reactive to criticism or doubt, you become proactive in creating, building, and moving forward. You start listening to the voices that truly matter, the ones within you, the ones grounded in insight, wisdom, and vision. And in doing so, your confidence grows, your energy is preserved, and your path becomes illuminated with intention rather than confusion. There is also a profound ripple effect that occurs when you refuse to listen to those who seek to limit you. Others begin to notice the steadiness in your actions, the certainty in your decisions, and the resilience in your spirit. They may initially resist, trying to reassert control or challenge your independence. But over time, your unwavering focus and clarity serve as a silent example. You demonstrate that self-determination is not only possible but powerful. You inspire others to examine whose voices they are allowing to shape their lives and encourage them to reclaim their own authority over their direction. Ignoring those who try to hold you back is not a passive act. It is a declaration of sovereignty over your life, an assertion that your potential is yours to cultivate, and a commitment to your own evolution that cannot be undermined by external fear or doubt. As you continue to cultivate the discipline of choosing not to listen to those who attempt to limit you, you discover new dimensions of freedom and creativity. Your focus sharpens because it is no longer scattered by criticism or unnecessary commentary. Your energy deepens because it is invested in creation, not defense. Your resilience strengthens because you learn that the measure of your value exists within you, not in the fluctuating opinions of others. Every decision becomes more intentional, every action more deliberate, and every dream more attainable. By refusing to internalize voices designed to restrict you, you begin to live a life defined not by limitation but by expansion, a life rooted in self-trust, courage, and unwavering purpose.